And there they were, two hunters, bending over their fire, but hearing suddenly from the jungle beyond a shake of wind and a loud questioning cry. She lifted her head. "It's raining," she murmured, and her voice was like his when he had said, "I love that little boy." Well, why didn't they just give way to it, yield, and see what will happen then? But no. Vague and troubled though they were, they knew enough to realize their precious friendship was in danger. She was the one who would be destroyed, not they, and they'd be no party to that. He got up, knocked out his pipe, ran his hand through his hair and said,
"I have been wondering very much lately whether the novel of the future will be a psychological novel or not. How sure are you that psychology has got anything to do with literature at all?"
"Do you mean you feel there's quite a chance that the mysterious non-existent creatures, the young writers of today, are trying simply to jump the psychoanalyst's claim?"
Yes, I do. And I think it's because this generation is just wise enough to know that it is sick, and to realize that its only chance of recovery is by going into its symptoms, making an exhaustive study of them, tracking them down, trying to get at the root of the trouble.
"Oh," she wailed, "what a dreadfully dismal outlook."
"Not at all,"
said he.
"Look here."
On the talk went, and now it seemed they really had succeeded. She turned in her chair to look at him while she answered. Her smile said, "We have won," and he smiled back, confident.
"Absolutely."
But the smile undid them. It lasted too long. It became a grin. They saw themselves as two little grinning puppets jigging away in nothingness.
"What have we been talking about?"
thought he. He was so utterly bored he almost groaned. "What a spectacle we have made of ourselves," thought she, and she saw him laboriously, oh laboriously, laying out the grounds and herself running after, putting here a tree and there a flowery shrub and here a handful of glittering fish in a pool. They were silent this time from sheer dismay. The clock struck 6 merry little pings and the fire made a soft flutter. What fools they were, heavy, stodgy, elderly, with positively upholstered minds. And now the silence put a spell upon them like solemn music. It was anguish. Anguish for her to bear it, and he would die. He'd die if it were broken. And yet he longed to break it, not by speech, at any rate not by their ordinary maddening chatter. There was another way for them to speak to each other, and in a new way he wanted to murmur,
"Do you feel this too? Do you understand it at all?"
Instead, to his horror, he heard himself say,
"I must be off. I'm meeting Brandt at 6."
What devil made him say that instead of the other? She jumped, simply jumped out of her chair, and he heard her crying, "You must rush then. He's so punctual. Why didn't you say so before?" "You've hurt me. You've hurt me. We've failed," said her secret self, while she handed him his hat and stick, smiling gaily. She wouldn't give him a moment for another word, but ran along the passage and opened the big outer door. Could they leave each other like this? How could they? He stood on the step, and she just inside, holding the door. It was not raining now. "You've hurt me," said her heart. "Why don't you go?" "No, don't go. Stay." "No, go." And she looked out upon the night. She saw the beautiful fall of the steps, the dark garden ringed with glittering ivy, on the other side of the road the huge bare willows, and above them the sky, big and bright with stars. But of course he would see nothing of all this. He was superior to it all, he with his wonderful spiritual vision. She was right. He did see nothing at all. Misery. He'd missed it. It was too late to do anything now. Was it too late? Yes, it was. A cold snatch of hateful wind blew into the garden. Curse life. He heard her cry, "Au revoir," and the door slammed. Running back into the studio, she behaved so strangely, She ran up and down, lifting her arms and crying, "Oh, oh, how stupid! How imbecile! How stupid!" And then she flung herself down in the sommier, thinking of nothing, just lying there in her rage. All was over. What was over? Oh, something was. And she'd never see him again. Never. After a long, long time, or perhaps 10 minutes had passed in that black gulf, her bell rang, a sharp, quick jingle. It was he, of course, and equally, of course, she oughtn't to have paid the slightest attention to it, but just let it go on ringing and ringing. She flew to answer. On the doorstep there stood an elderly virgin, a pathetic creature, who simply idolized her, heaven knows why, and had this habit of turning up and ringing the bell and then saying, when she opened the door, "My dear, send me away." She never did. As a rule, she asked her in and let her admire everything, and accepted the bunch of slightly soiled-looking flowers more than graciously. But today, "Oh, I'm so sorry," she cried, "but I've got someone with me. We are working on some woodcuts. I'm hopelessly busy all evening." "It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all, darling," said a good friend. "I was just passing and I thought I'd leave you some violets." She fumbled down among the ribs of a large old umbrella. "I put them down here. Such a good place to keep flowers out of the wind. Here they are," she said, shaking out a little dead bunch. For a moment she did not take the violets, but while she stood just inside, holding the door, a strange thing happened. Again she saw the beautiful fall of the steps, the dark garden ringed with glittering ivy, the willows, the big bright sky. Again she felt the silence that was like a question. But this time she did not hesitate. She moved forward. Very softly and gently, as though fearful of making a ripple in that boundless pool of quiet, she put her arms round her friend. "My dear," murmured her happy friend, quite overcome by this gratitude, "they are really nothing. Just the simplest little threepenny bunch." But as she spoke, she was enfolded, more tenderly, more beautifully embraced, held by such a sweet pressure, and for so long, that the poor dear's mind positively reeled, as he just had the strength to quaver, "Then you really don't mind me too much?" "Good night, my friend," whispered the other. "Come again soon." "Oh, I will, I will." This time she walked back to the studio slowly, and standing in the middle of the room, with half-shut eyes, she felt so light, so rested, as if she had woken up out of a childish sleep. Even the act of breathing was a joy. The sommier was very untidy. All the cushions like furious mountains, as she said. She put them in order before going over to the writing table. "I have been thinking over our talk about the psychological novel," she dashed off. "It really is intensely interesting." And so on, and so on. At the end she wrote, "Good night, my friend. Come again soon." End of Psychology by Catherine Mansfield. This recording is in the public domain.